Are you here for our
Don't be shy. Just hop on in.
Okay, I was just checking because we're getting started. Okay, yeah.
Welcome. This is like our first big kickoff to the planting season. We had Resurrection Garden workshops this week, which is our first hands-on workshop, and then we have this one, which is this gets me so excited to get my hands in the dirt outside, to get gardening. Oh, thank you guys all so much for coming. We are also recording this video, so we have a lot of people who wanted to come, so you can watch it later as well. My name's Tiffany, if you haven't met me yet. I see a lot of familiar faces. My last name is Sustar. I am a Buchwalter as well. My sister Bethany will be joining me here in just a moment. We are 5th generation Buchwalters here at the greenhouse. The greenhouse was started in 1926, so we are very quickly creeping up on a 100-year anniversary. We're so excited. So we're going to be tag teaming just a little bit today. My background, if you haven't met me before, my background, I've grown up here at the greenhouse. Even when it was and we had to tear most of those older greenhouses down, and then this facility was built in '99. So we grew up playing in the dirt together, literally, making mud pies and the giant plants like you see in the back. That was our jungle. We would have picnics underneath the leaves, and it was just great. A lot of fun. So education-wise, I have my degree in Spanish education, and I taught in public schools for 10 years. So my formal education is not in horticulture, believe it or not. Everything I've learned from my father and my grandmother, and just doing it hands-on, trying to see what works. My sister Bethany, share a little bit about you with what you do, because it really goes hand in hand really well.
Yeah. Well, I'm the little sister, and
thanks for just saying I'm old.
You're welcome. I did not get a green thumb, even though I grew up here. So I joke about that. My sister and my dad are owners here, and so people always come up and ask me questions about plants, and I know some things, but I always direct back to the expert. So I joke about that. So instead, I went off to college and I got a degree in communication and higher education. I was actually a dean of students at the College of Worcester for 4 years. And anyways, so my job now, my husband and I are co-owners of CrossFit Worcester here in Worcester, Ohio. And I also offer nutrition coaching. One of the things I'm really passionate about is having lifestyle go hand in hand with what we're eating. One of the things that I had within the past 5 years is that I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes with my second, and I had to learn how to manage my blood sugar while I was pregnant. And after that experience, I learned a lot about how food affects my overall health, my well-being, and how I could actually take control of my health by my choices that I eat every day. And I know that sounds very simple, but putting that into play and having a plan can actually be hard. It's simple, but it can be hard. So that's when I decided to become a coach. I'm a really good coach because I coached a lot of college students to see success in their own educational journey. And believe it or not, adults are actually very similar to college students. They have a goal, and oftentimes we need extra support to get there. So that's where my education comes into play, and I love what I do, along with being able to obviously pull on my roots here at the greenhouse. Wow, I'm punny this morning. Pull on my roots here at the greenhouse. I did not mean that.
That was really good.
No, I have seen what creating and building our own garden has done for our family and the community that it brings, and knowing what you put in your body at the end of the day, and connecting that piece, because I think we all live very busy lifestyles that we often just go, there's a banana, there's a tomato, there's a cucumber. I know I should be eating these things. I don't know what to do with it. It often sits in the fridge and then it can expire. But if you put the work into your food and then also know what you have a plan with afterwards, what you're going to do with that food, it can be a really big help. So that's one of the reasons why. Oh, this is my brother-in-law, Shannon, the tech. Am I not talking loud enough, bud? Okay.
Oh, people like to hear really well.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay.
I think you were wrapping up anyway, but go ahead.
It's okay. One of the things that I have actually today, so Tiffany is going to go over how to plan for your garden this spring and all of the options. Our goal with this workshop is specifically to have you guys think about what is your lifestyle and what's practical for you, because there's so many people that have really great ambitions, plow an acre, plan all the things, and don't understand. I'm sure as I sit here as a millennial and I look at my dad across the way and know he knows all of the work. My grandma knows all of the work. I think with 2020 and all of the things, there's a lot of people in my generation that got interested in putting in gardens, and now we see the work, but we have very busy lifestyles too. So our goal is to make sure that this is sustainable for you and that there's an end goal. So when you're thinking about your garden, I want you to think about what you're going to make. So are there recipes that are on your, what we call like routine or regular schedule that gets circulated? Like I have a great recipe up here, vegetable lasagna. So I have seeds for zucchini. I have onion sets. I don't have the tomato plants, but that's a great example of thinking ahead that, wow, my family really likes this dish. I'm going to grow it to the best of my ability on my own this year. So I have that and like know that I grew that and I got to serve it on my table. So that was our goal of connecting nutrition and gardening with this workshop. We thought it was really important. And so before I hand the mic back over to Tiffany really quick, there is a piece in here I have, you can flip through. We have a lot of resources today, but if you are interested in learning more or signing up for coaching or just wanting free recipes, I have a board up here where you can actually put your name and phone number. If you did sign up with our link, I'm automatically going to send everybody free recipes on our website that we have that are really good, are written by a registered dietitian and are very family oriented. So
I've used a lot of them, and they're like,
fun
we
fact,
haven't found one we haven't liked.
my sister's also my client.
I am.
And it's been a lot of fun to see her in her journey, which has been a long one. Started last year.
Yeah.
So I have some other clients in the crowd, but I won't make them raise their hand.
So she does nutrition coaching, and her husband is a CrossFit coach. So it's the exercise plus nutrition working together. And most of us can say, like, I know I should eat more vegetables at the end of the day. We all know what vegetables are good for us. But what really helped my mindset was just, oh, how is that putting together? How am I being intentional with that? And having a coach help me get that and gets me to the point where I can do it mostly on my own now is huge.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And we're very passionate about our family's health. So I have one other thing in here. If you want a very practical resource, I have Eat the Rainbow. And it's a fruit and veggie tracker. And it's just something if you struggle with eating vegetables, I have a resource for that and all of the benefits obviously that go with that. And I just wanted to highlight also my awesome coach, Tracy Miller, over there as well. She's a coach for us. She's actually a registered nurse. And she's also a mom, and I'm super happy to have her on my team. So anyways, I'm going to pass it over to Tiffany. And if you would love to talk to me or just talk about practical steps of implementing a budget for your lifestyle, for eating healthy food, or what to plant, or some fun recipes to add more vegetables in your garden, talk to me. So here's Tiffany.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's awesome. Okay, we're going to jump right in. So we're going to be working off of this veggie container gardening outline. I'm going to do my best to stay on track with that. If you have a question as we're going through this, feel free to pop your hand up. Otherwise, I'll take questions at the end. If you ever get to a point where you're like, I need to head out, that's okay. Like, no worries. You can pop and leave. So starting off today, I want this, yes, we already touched on, we want this to be practical and applicable. We don't want to overwhelm anybody with gardening. Let's keep it simple. So this is the question I want you to start off with yourself is, what do you want to grow? Okay, you can grow literally tons and tons of vegetables, but if you're not going to eat them, why are you wasting your time? Okay, so sit down with your family. What are your favorite veggies that we can look at growing? So start there. From there is the next question of what's going to be the most economical for you to grow. If you're investing a lot of money in certain veggies that you could, and you don't eat them often enough, you just pick them at the supermarket, then that may not be your best investment time-wise and money-wise. And then the last question you could ask, what tastes better fresh? I always have lots of people who are, tell me tomatoes in the grocery store just don't taste the same as a fresh tomato. And that's worth it for me to take the time to grow. Second question you need to look at, where are you going to grow these vegetables? Okay, so this is going to be kind of decided for you. You want to go for the sunniest location possible. Usually that's a south-facing or west-facing part of your house. There could be trees that come into play. You may need to just take some notes on your phone or make a little diary and look outside. And then look again. 12 o'clock is there sun at that spot? At 4 is there? Because you want to shoot for 8 hours of sunlight wherever you are growing, whether it's in the ground or in a pot. Could you grow with less than 8 hours? Yes, absolutely. What you're going to see happen is you're going to have less production on plants. You're not going to get as big of harvest if you get less than 8. You could grow a tomato in full shade, but the reality is you may not get very many tomatoes, if any. Okay, so going from that. Second question about where you're going to grow it. Is it easy for you to get to? And this comes into play really when you are busy and you're always on the go. Because you don't want to put, for example, I found myself, like I had some earth boxes. I had one that was on my deck that I could see, and then there was another one that was kind of behind the pool. And I didn't walk back there very often. So I would often forget about that guy back there, and he did not get the love and attention he needed as the one on my deck, because I was always up there and walking by it. So if you're on the go, consider trying to place a container or pot where you're walking by it out to your car, or you're coming in and out of your house, because then you can see right away, oh, it needs more water. Oh, I think something's chewing on the leaves, and you're getting a quick attention to that plant and being more successful long term. That coming into play, containers is going to be really helpful, and it could be anywhere from window boxes on up to bigger containers. You could use decorative pots or an earth box. And we'll come back to that later. But the advantage of your containers is that you can move these around. If you have a problem with deer, sometimes it helps to have them up by your house. I've dealt with groundhogs, I've dealt with rabbits, and sometimes I just have to get them up. Even being on my deck sometimes did not work. But then too, you can control how much water is going into these as well. If you find you're in a location that's really wet all the time and it always gets soggy, you may not want to do a small plot of ground directly there. You might want to consider a raised bed, which is the next point we're going into. So raised beds that are becoming more and more popular because you can grow a lot of food in that area, and it doesn't have to be very big. Some of your advantages with your raised bed, you can harvest easier because it's up off the ground. Ideally, you want it at like 2 to 3 feet high. So now you're not having to bend over as far. You're saving some strain on your back. Again, you can easily access that, so it's a lot easier to weed. It warms up that soil. It will be warmer faster than down in the ground because it's elevated up. You're going to be able to start growing things in there a little bit sooner, maybe a couple weeks earlier than you will in the ground. One way to check that is your soil temperature. This is a soil thermometer. You just push it down in the ground. I checked it this morning, and our soil temperature outside was about 41, 42. I'm going to come back to this in a little bit. Get ahead of myself. Usually with raised beds, if you're considering raised beds, you want to make them from either cedar or non-treated wood. You don't want to use railroad tiles. You don't want to use treated wood because those all have chemicals that can leach into the soil. I know it's something that might be readily available, but I would avoid it unless you want to lawn your bed. When people have done that, they've lined it and then poked holes in the bottom. Another option is I did one year. If you don't know what a good old cement block is, this is your cement blocks. Okay, so if you turn them sideways, you can stack them up in about like a 4x4 spot. Planting in the middle. I also planted in the tops of the holes. I put marigolds in them. That was fun. Just because I was like, oh, another spot to put a plant. Why not? Let's shove it in there. By the way, marigolds are traditionally planted around gardens because they do invite pollinators, but at the same time, they help repel different pests as well. So it's not just a tradition or old wives' tale. They are very helpful. So that's why you will see a lot of traditional gardens with some marigolds around as well. Okay, so if you want a quick, easy solution, I love the cement block raised bed. It was inexpensive, very easy to do. Traditional garden, if you really want to grow corn and you really want to have pumpkins and watermelon and things that vine out like that, you need to have a plot of land. Usually you want to shoot for like 25 feet or 50, because a lot of your bigger things you want to do like a 25-foot row or a 50-foot row, like for corn. Could you grow a single ear of corn? Yes. Will you get much corn? Probably won't get any. Maybe one stalk. Okay, I'm just, if you know nobody's tried it, some of you are going, uh-huh. And some of you are like, okay, I want life. But if you just want to have some fun, sure. Otherwise, corn needs to cross-pollinate, and you have to have several rows. Okay, next thing we need to look at, preparing the soil. What kind of soil do I use? What should I do with what? Containers. When you're growing in pots, okay, you want to use a potting soil. So Mix has a potting soil. This is a peat-based mix. Sometimes it's called a soilless mix. I opened all these bags up so you guys can come up and feel it. You have to be really careful. That's actually indicating something. It's not really good for a container. So you want a potting mix for your pots. This has slow release fertilizer in it. And then we also have an organic mix. This is called Gardener's Gold. Oh, that's what I didn't want to happen. Sorry, guys. That hurt my ears. So Gardener's Gold is our OMRI, the organic mix. Great for your pots. I would fill that up. Usually I do that in my earth box. Next we have, so that's for your pots. If you're doing a raised bed, okay, raised bed, and you're starting out brand new, you need some pot topsoil. Okay, you could get that from wherever, but you want to make sure it's clean topsoil. If you need to do it by the bag, we have Casey Pank's Super Soil. Okay, what's that? It is a topsoil blended with some manure. Okay, so it has some enrichment to it. This is processed in Dundee, Ohio, so it's local. I actually like to do a mix of that and the soil builder. So this is a compost that is composted in Maine. Because it's done over in Maine, it has a great mix of shellfish. And all that calcium from the shellfish is magnificent for your tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. They love that. So I usually do half and half. That one is more of an investment, but it's definitely worth it. The last thing you can mix in is your good old manure, old country. We'll have more of this coming next week. That I typically use directly in the garden if you're going to use it at all. One thing to watch, you don't want to go too heavy on manure. If you do, you're going to see tomato plants that are really green and they're big and they're beautiful and they will not get many tomatoes or none because that manure has lots of nitrogen, which means they're growing, and they're happy and they're big, but they're not going to set fruit. So try not to get too heavy on the manure. Okay, so potting mix for pots, raised beds, your topsoil and bumper crop mix. Not really a right or wrong way to do that. Directly in the ground, you can do just the bumper crop in the ground as well. I like to, but I concentrate that where I plant each plant. Because again, it's more of an investment type compost and I don't want to feed the weeds. So I put the fertilizer right where I'm planting. I put the compost right where I'm planting. Eventually, if you want to spread a whole bunch out and do a big till, you can do that. But I like to focus where my plants are going. Okay, so that's the secrets of our soil there. Okay. Going now to container planting. Okay, this is going to get more detailed if you want to grow in pots. What I tried to do here was divide out, depending on what kind of plant it is, what size pot should you have. Okay, your herbs are what you can grow in the smallest size pot. Now, a lot of your pots of herbs, they're going to come in a pot a little bit smaller than this. Just to give you an idea, with your herbs, if you go to about the same size pot they're already in, you're going to be watering that 2 or 3 times a day. So this is not going to be big enough. Okay. Second thing I'm going to say, I don't recommend growing in terracotta for vegetables and herbs because it is a porous material and that air it's going to dry out your soil faster. So I'm sorry. It looks really pretty, but I don't recommend it. It is still terracotta, but this is more of the size you want to aim for herbs. Herb in here. Okay? Just thyme, just a basil plant, just a parsley plant. This is an 8-inch pot. Okay. If you go up from that, this would be even better because they could get pretty big in here and you wouldn't have to water until you're like falling over. So this is herbs. Another option would be a window box. Some people like find some really cool deck boxes. This is the Earth Box Junior. So he is made, we also have the regular size Earth Box, but this is made with a water. So there's a little grate here and it keeps water underneath. And then there's an overflow spout. I don't know if you can see that here. So you can never give it too much water. And what it does is it has these little pockets so the soil and roots can reach down into the water. And it just osmosis is going to wick up and water it for you. So you're just putting, there's a little tube that comes in it. So you just put water into the tube till it overflows out the side. The bigger Earth Box is like this as well. But it's a great way, it's like a set it. This is, if you're really busy and you don't have time to check it, your soil moisture all the time, this is a way to get around that. This would be the size for your herbs. I probably wouldn't grow anything bigger than herbs in this. We might be able to get away with a pepper, but lettuce would be great in here. Spinach would be great in here. The next size up of the Earth Box is going to be better for your tomatoes and peppers. Next size up is tomatoes. This is really what you need for one tomato plant. I know that seems huge, especially when you get your plant and he's only like this big, okay? But they grow so fast. And by the time you get to July and August, when you get August and you get that fruit on there, it's going to be using water like crazy because that's all tomatoes are is water. So this is mainly planting on down the road. You're going to need this big size or this one. This is another Earth Box pot. So you still have that same feature of the water reservoir, but you could put one tomato plant in here. 2 would be pushing it. Maybe a tomato and then an herb or 2 hanging off the side. The bigger, I have a couple of the bigger size Earth Boxes. They're about this big. And so those I will do 2 tomatoes in, 1 or 2 tomatoes. And then I line one of it right here with parsley. I put a basil in, I put maybe some chives because those will be ready before my tomatoes are. And then I can still use them in my cooking. And I'm making use of that space. And then once the tomato is bigger, it's not really going to matter, but it's kind of growing over them. And I still am able to cut off of them all summer. But that steady watering really helps. If you want to do cucumbers, a raised bed would be a little more ideal. Otherwise, you're going to have to dedicate just one big pot like this to one cucumber plant. If you're short on space, try trellising cucumbers. It's really, you get nice straight cucumbers, and you're like, oh, how do I trellis them? You could get a decorative trellis. You can also use teepees. We have some up by the seed rack that are good. Some people even use chicken wire. Like, you can find all kinds of ideas out there on the internet, but a real simple way to do this, and you could do this with pole beans as well, is you put one stake here, and you take your garden twine, and either when you wrap it, kind of get them wedged in there, just going back and forth, and then you leave your extra string, come back to it next week, because if you run up some higher, and then you go back around here, and back around here, and you just keep going as it goes up. We did that with pole beans, and they were the best pole beans. They were nice and straight. They weren't dirty. I was picking them up here. Again, we're getting up off the ground, so I'm picking them up here instead of bending over and lifting up the bush beans. So I really liked that. Potatoes. I did potatoes in a bag. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the little bags that pop up, kind of like a leaf bag that has a spring going through it, and they'll pop up. It was really fun. You could do it with a regular pot as well if you want, but you just put a little bit of soil in the bottom, put 2 or maybe 3 potatoes in the bottom, and then put some soil over top, not very deep, and then as you see it sprout, add some more soil. It'll sprout up through there. Add some more soil, sprout up through there, and then at the end of the season, you just dump that all out, and you don't have to dig anything. It's just like a big treasure hunt of potatoes.
What soil would you use? Because I
Good
tried
question.
that last year, and the person who told me, like, they said, put some straw in there, put this, put that. And I mean, I did get some
Yes.
potatoes, but I was expecting more.
Okay. You won't probably get as many potatoes as you would growing them in the ground, but it could have been maybe not enough water. For mine, I used raised bed mix I talked about. I used the super soil and bumper crop mix, because the super soil is the top soil, so it gave me some weight. And then I mixed in the bumper crop to help enrich that soil as well. So I found that 50-50 mix worked really well for me. I had a little bag that had a window, like flap, that I could reach in, and because your oldest tomatoes will be on the bottom, or potatoes, sorry. And I was able to pull a couple out, a couple early, and that was fun too. Good question. Sweet potatoes are not quite, like sort of. So sweet potatoes, you will grow from a plant, like a cutting that has been rooted. So those you have to wait to start until later, after mid-May. Usually you want to do a hill and then let them grow down into the hill. I haven't tried those in pots, but we do grow a variety. It's called Bush, Puerto Rico sweet potato, that is more compact, because sweet potato is vine. That's more compact, so you could grow that in a pot. That's one I'd like to try this year.
What would you recommend as far as preserving potatoes if you grow a whole bunch?
Preserving them?
Yes.
This is something I have not tried. I would look up some information on like root cellars. Okay, so usually for storage with that type of thing, you want something cool. You might have to, I don't know what they store them in. That might involve like straw or something like that, but usually a cool space, because the cooler you keep them, the less like they're gonna root out. Yeah. So I don't have information on that for you right now, but that's where you're gonna look. Yes. 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 That's a perfect example. That's a root cellar. Yeah. Because down below into the ground, it never freezes. But it keeps it cold and cool. So that's why I don't know if you've ever seen a root cellar, but they're very cool. That was a really good pun again. Look at that. Are you awake? Come on, guys. This is fun. Could you grow cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower in pots? Yes, you could. But really, one broccoli plant is going to take up this whole big pot. Okay, so you got to weigh your options. Is that worth it for you just to have one head of broccoli? Maybe it is. Maybe you're just, you have a pot sitting around at home that you want to use. Go for it. But I would grow those in a small, like in a raised bed or a small plot of land. I'm going to skip over for a second here. I don't have that paper, but you guys do. The yellow paper, a couple of you guys it might be that bright green. If you're interested in doing a raised bed, this is, you want to turn to the side that says square foot gardening. So that's going to be your resource for if you're doing a raised bed and you want to make the most of every square foot in that raised bed, how to do it. I love how they show you how to section off each part of that space and how many plants you can grow in that space. So if you just want to start off with a 4x4 foot raised bed, that's going to be where you want to start planning. Okay, and that's going to take some time just to sit down and decide, okay, I'm going to grow my carrots here, I'm going to grow my cucumbers here, but that shows you how you can make it happen in that small space. Okay, so you can go back and visit that later. Okay, we talked about our earth box. If you have any more questions about how the earth box works, just let me know. I've had mine for over 10 years now, a really long time. They are more of an investment because of what goes into them and the setup, but you can use them over and over and over again. Now, taking care of these vegetables, we got them planted in our good soil and we have them placed in the sun. How do we keep them alive? Okay. Water. Okay, we want it consistently wet. And when I say consistent, you might have to set a reminder on your phone so you don't forget. Let's just be realistic. Like if you need a reminder to feed your pets or to water your houseplants, you should put a reminder on here or pick a day, a couple of days of the week that you always go and check on these plants. Okay? It's okay. I have reminders on my phone and I still miss things, but you want the soil to be consistently damp. Starting off, like when a lot of this planting gets going in May, you're not going to have to water every day, okay? Watering every day is going to come into play when you get to hot 80-degree days in July, August. Fruit starts to come on. Then you're going to be watering them every day, unless you go with like an earth box, okay? Another way to get around that is to get a deep saucer and put it, like if you can't keep up with watering and you're getting home at the end of the day and the soil feels really dry, get a deep saucer, put water in that deep saucer or bucket, set it in there in the morning, and when you come back in the afternoon, it should still be hydrated for you. Why do we want it to be consistently damp? Because a lot of your vegetables, again, tomatoes, cucumbers, they're all made up of water. And so what happens is if you let that soil dry out and you have tomatoes forming, they will actually kind of shrink because they're trying to conserve water and give it, back to the plant. And then the peel outside, because it shrinks and then you water it, it'll try to expand really fast. And then that's when your cracking will happen on the fruit, okay? So if you have ever had it go from really dry to really wet, or if you have your garden, happens in the garden too. If it's really dry and you're not taking the time to water your garden, you'll have that swelling happen and it'll crack. Your fruit will be larger as well. You'll have less problems with disease if you keep it consistently wet. Because if things get dried out, they get stressed. When you have something that's stressed, what happens to us when we get stressed? We get sick. Same thing happens to your plants. If they're stressed, they'll get disease happen. They'll have insects that will start to attack them. Keep in mind, if you do pots, you're going to be watering these more often than if you have anything planted in the ground or a raised bed. So I'd say degrees of watering, you'll be watering pots the most. A raised bed is going to be second-ish. Third is going to be your traditional garden because that has a greater amount of space that they can pull water from. Next, we're going to talk about feeding your plants. This is one area that I don't know why, but everybody feels like they can skip that part because the plants have all the nutrients they need in the ground. I wish that was true, guys, but we don't live in that perfect utopia. Okay, so we really do need to feed them. Initially, when you plant, bumper crop is the best organic fertilizer that we carry that you can mix. This is not the same as the soil amendment that you can mix in with your soil. It is soil and it's compost, which is great. This is a supplement to that. This also has calcium in it, so it prevents a lot of problems down the line. You're not doing it very often. Maybe, what do they have? They have it divided out on here if you're doing in containers or in the ground, but it's usually about once a month. Okay? Set a reminder on your phone. Time to feed my veggies. Okay? This is a little more of a traditional feed, but this people really, it helps people a lot when they're growing tomatoes. If you've ever had a tomato growing and it gets a dark spot on the bottom of it, it's really brown and leathery and it looks like it's starting to rot from the bottom up. That's called blossom end rot. And that happens from a lack of calcium. So again, that goes back to we were talking about bumper crop trying to prevent problems later because it had the shellfish in there. But the other way that you'll have that problem happen, even if you did everything right, is if we have a lot of heavy rain over and over and over again, or if you're having to water your pots over and over and over again because it's so hot and so dry, that calcium can leach out of your soil and leave your plants hungry because of just the way it's structured. So this is one way to get it back in. This will work faster because you mix this with water. This is Captain Jack's fertilizer. So liquid, it's going to get that quick jolt to your plants. It's going to work faster. This is kind of like a slow, steady feed. So there's definitely other products out there you can use. Those are two that I would recommend that we carry here. Yes. Can you do both? Yes. Absolutely. Yes. This applies to your flowers too. I mean, not necessarily these products, but you can feed your flowers. There's a flower version of this that you can put around your plants. And then you can still do a liquid no more than once a week. Usually this you would shoot for like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Because you don't want to overload them again either. But yes, you can use them together.
Compost yourself, like food scraps.
Yeah.
Is that helpful for the garden?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just make sure you're composting the right things, obviously. But yeah, your own compost, absolutely. People are, I mean, you talk to anybody who's gardened an extra year. I mean, they're always using their eggshells, banana peels. That's all great to go back in there and self-sustainable too. Yeah. Just crushing up. People ask me a lot about eggshells. Just crushing them up it's not necessarily going to be immediately available to your plants. It still has to break down, and then they'll be able to use it. Throw it in a blender. I mean, it's going to be a little bit faster, right? But there's also some older remedies for even insects that crush up some eggshells and put them around because it can help prevent like worms, that type of thing. Which leads us into insect control, okay? Because if you're going to have vegetables, you're going to have bugs, good and bad, okay? Being proactive with feeding your plants is going to help prevent insects. This is because a healthy plant will actually have a higher amount of lipids, which is a type of fat, in their leaves. Insects have a hard time digesting fat. Okay, so they're not typically going to go after those nice healthy leaves. They might go after new growth because it's still tender, but those weaker plants, if you have a plant, 2 tomatoes, for example, one's not being affected, but one is, that one might be lacking in some kind of nutrient. It needs fed, and that's why the insects are going after that one. So being proactive about feeding can help prevent problems, and the watering, keeping that steady watering going. Even if you do all those things, you'll probably still have insects show up. Japanese beetles are probably one of the worst. If they're not your nemesis yet, they will be. So what should you have in your arsenal ready to go? Because obviously we don't want to spray if we don't have to. Number one, we don't want our bees, our butterflies. We want those to be around. And we don't want on our plants unless we have to. So this is what I recommend with your vegetables. One product is called Captain Jack. This is available in a dust. It's available in a spray. So Captain Jack's fun story where its name came from. They found this microorganism called spinosad growing in a distillery in the Caribbean. Okay, but there was no bugs around. So they did some testing and found, lo and behold, there was this spinosad growing in the distillery, and it will infect the digestive system of insects, and they stop eating and die. Woo-hoo! And better, safe for us to use. So most of the time, you can use this up to the day of harvest, and you just do a normal wash. Okay, so this is labeled for natural organic use. Do I use a dust? Do I use a spray? The dust, I tell you can see where the dust lands. So if you want to make sure you get the whole plant, that can be helpful. But it's also available in the spray form if you just want to spritz and go. That's great. But again, keep in mind, it takes a little bit longer to work. I've used it, for example, on corn one year. There were Japanese beetles were everywhere. They didn't die as quickly as your traditional sprays would have. They just kind of were like, what just happened? And they stayed there for like a day or two, and then eventually they were like, and they keel over and fall off because they quit eating. It's kind of like getting a tummy ache, and then you just die from hunger, I guess. That sounds awful. Oh my gosh. It's so mean, but that's what you don't want them. Another option, 8 would be your other option. If you've ever heard of 7, this is a different formulation that's newer, a little bit newer makeup. So, 8's one better than 7. It's the whole marketing thing because it's a different company. But I will use this from time to time as well if I'm having a really hard time. This one, you have to just double check and see how long you can use it before harvest. So maybe you want to use it no more than a week before you're planning to cut and eat that vegetable or fruit, because you can use it on fruit as well. Neem oil has become wildly popular. If you've not heard of neem, it is made from a plant. They extract the oil from it. One thing you do need to start watching, though, is that there's 2 forms of it, okay? They're both great, but one's better than the other. So down in the very, very corner, it'll have your active ingredients listed in any of your sprays. Then here it's the clarified hydrophobic extract of neem oil. So this is just neem oil. They've heated it up, and when they cook it, essentially, they have some ingredients that they'll skim off and package as another type of spray. I'm pretty sure one's called azadirachtin. It's another great natural spray. So it's kind of like they get like a 2-for-1 deal. The companies do that will manufacture this. Then you have, for example, this is Neem Max. This is cold pressed neem oil. So it is cold pressed instead of heated up. So this still has all of the extra goodies in it that your regular neem oil does. This you'll find is a higher price point because of that, but it's going to work on a higher number of insects than just your regular neem oil does. But these will do your aphids, it'll do your beetles. And I'm pretty sure you can use it up to the day of harvest on about anything. So those 2 are probably the best that I would recommend for your vegetables or flowers if you want. Double check when to spray. Usually time of day to spray is going to be very early morning before all the insects wake up and get going, including the beneficial ones, or very late in the evening. Okay. Another alternative is if you're having a lot of issues with some tulle or netting that's very, very fine. I say tulle, like you have to go to the fabric store to get that. But you can also get row covers. There's a whole gamut of things out there that keeps insects out. You just cover the whole plant. That's the only way you can do it without any sprays. Oh, if you have, I didn't bring any disease products over, but you're always welcome to send us pictures on our social media accounts of a leaf. You're like, what's happening? Is this a fungus? Is this a bug? And we'll do our best to get back to you same day and let you know this is what it is or what we think it is. Kind of like a doctor prescription type deal. Here's what you need to kill it or fix it. But fungus, usually you're going to see some kind of spots or something that looks like baby powder on the leaves. That's probably powdery mildew, those type of things. Usually your diseases will show up when it's been really rainy, kind of on the cool side. That's when you run into your funguses. So it'd be good to have a fungicide. Funganil is one that you could have for disease. Ream is also listed for a lot of diseases and insects. So you kind of get a two-for deal. Now, we've gone over everything we needed to do. What can I start planting? Like, what can I do when I walk out the door today? We're in late March, and this is going to tie into the backside of that yellow or green paper you have. I just found this resource the other day, and I love it. It's provided by the Ohio State Extension Service. It's a co-op. They have their website it has to do with a victory garden. So there's a website listed down at the bottom of that as well. They're trying to revive victory gardens, which was started back in World War II. But that, I love how they just took each month and said, here's what you can plant. Here's the last chance you have to plant this one before it's too cold. So keep in mind, okay, what zone are we in? This map is telling us we are zone 6A. I will tell you no. That is my opinion. I would plan on us being 5B, which you can see there's like a blob of 5B to our west in Ashland County. I mean, all those places that get all the snow all the time, that's why they're saying they're 5B. I like to include us. They just recently started saying we're 6A, and I still think we're a 5, zone 5. And that just says we have to wait a little bit longer before we can get started than everybody else. So that said right at the top there, planting dates are based on zone 6A. Spring planting dates should be adjusted 1 week earlier. We're going to go look at 1 week later for zone 5B. So even though they say you can start after March 15th, your asparagus and collards and onions into the ground, shoot for a week later. Like next week, you could start doing those things if the weather is nice. Yes?
Are these dates based on if you're planting seedlings or already germinated plants, or are they based on starting us?
A good place to double check that, I would say, is it's going into the ground. And it could be started plants. If you start plants inside, you're going to want to transition them, though, to that colder temperature before you just pop them outside. Like pansies we have growing behind you right now. Could you plant pansies outside right now? Yes, but these have not experienced cold yet. So they need just putting them out for a bit at the time, maybe in 40-degree days in the morning. And then after that, a couple of days, you do want to do some 30-degree days. And then they could be tolerant of upper 20s because the leaves will thicken and they'll be able to endure that. If you go with them outside right now, they'll probably go, oh crap, and just get burnt and you're going to lose your flowers. So same thing with your vegetables. Get them hardened off if you started them inside or if they were started at a greenhouse. If they've been outside at a garden center, then they should be okay to go ahead and plant into the ground. But to tie that in, if you want to be sure, this vegetable planting guide that we gave you is where you can look to see the planting dates for starting something inside and starting something in the ground. So, like your asparagus, it doesn't even give you an option for starting it inside because it's not worth it, guys. Just start your asparagus in the ground. How you would start your asparagus right now, you're going to get crowns, like roots like this. So that's what you're going to be planting. I have to do a new asparagus row this year because we built greenhouses where our asparagus patch was, and I'm really sad. But asparagus is a really easy one. It comes back every year. So if you're going to do some vegetables or fruits that come back every year, build that into your plan so it's not taking up valuable space that you need later on for plants that you have to do year after year. So asparagus, potatoes, we're just coming up on the time you can do that. A lot of people are starting to get their potatoes and onions, and they're waiting for the ground to dry out a little bit. You could go ahead and do them in a container, though. That helps you skip over that whole part. If you start a raised bed, go ahead and start them in a raised bed because you get to skip over the whole, I'm waiting for my ground to dry out problem. That's another benefit of having that. Your peas, radish, spinach, turnips, that's are all from seed. I would just start them directly in the ground. I am going to start some spinach in a little window box or a bowl. And I have a room, like a sunroom that's not heated. So I know I'll germinate them faster, and then I'm going to transition them outside just to get ahead for a couple weeks. So April is when you can start getting into a little bit more things. May is really your biggest gardening month. So you guys are not behind at all on getting started. Soil temperature, they have the note on here that soil temperature is more important than air temperature, and that's very true. Cool season vegetables, you want to shoot for 55 degrees. So I told you, soil thermometer, we're at 40 right now, so we're just not quite there yet. We need a few more sunny days to get that ground warmed up. So that's where a tool like this is going to help tell you if it's time to plant or not. This particular one even has like temperatures. It's cabbage, celery, onions, peas, 45 degrees ground temperature. Broccoli, 50 degrees. Then you have some of your other ones. They really want to shoot for 65, 70, 75 degrees to do well. So that's why your tomatoes, peppers, they really like it to be 70, 75 is even better because they're going to take off and do well really, really fast. See if I covered it. So that was, what to plant. This is our Ohio gardening calendar. I threw some other resources down there. I know the internet is just so full of everybody saying what to do. You're going to find multiple approaches are all going to work. Okay. But if you want something reliable, if you're doing a search and you're just trying to find some good facts that you can count on, if I found doing a search with Ohio State and whatever vegetable or fruit you need to learn more about, like Ohio State blueberries, usually your top results are going to be a fact sheet from the Ohio State Extension. It's going to tell you the types of blueberries you can plant, and it's all information that pertains to Ohio, not Florida, which is really important. So they do have a really good resource on there. This, on the gardening calendar, there is that website at the bottom you can go to with the Victory Gardens. I was clicking through all of those the other day, and they even have a seed program. If you want, you could sign up to hopefully get like 5 packets of seed that they have it as a grant set up that they're going to be sending out to people from each county. So, I mean, I know it's only like $5 worth of seed, but if you want to do something with your kids, that would be a great thing to sign up for, because I also have a place that you can upload your pictures and just create a community for that as well. So, okay, we have our containers. We've talked about raised beds. Oh, okay, so let's cut the photos real quick, and then we're gonna wrap up. If you're thinking about doing containers, okay, you can do something pretty. Don't feel like you have to just look at plastic. If you have a deck and that's all you have room to grow something on, consider investing in some pots that you like the look of, because that can be beautiful as well. And your garden can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be filled with flowers. Another option, this is not for everybody, but something that's on wheels or raised up. This model we grew in last year. I have chives actually that came back and just wintered over outside. This as an example, you'll see a lot of containers out there like this, and they do work. Ideally for smaller things, but you can plant in the top, you can plant in the sides, and you can get a lot of vegetables in a very small space. So those, if you're doing something like this, look for, we'll have a section when we get going here in May that is all plants, vegetables for small spaces. Usually the key words for that is going to be bush, like a bush cucumber, or patio, like we'll have a patio tomato. They stay smaller, they don't get as big. So again, it's not taking up all of your space if you're wanting to grow a lot of different things in a small area. Somebody had a question.
I was just gonna ask you what would you grow in there, but you already answered.
Oh, yes. Yes, last year we grew it right here at the greenhouse. I had herbs in a couple of different pockets because they don't take up much room. But I also grew like one cucumber coming out of it. I had one pepper, like maybe a jalapeno. I had a tomato. I had a patio tomato on the top of it. Lettuce around the sides, and then that was done. Lettuce finishes earlier than other things, okay? Some of these you're gonna notice, again, that's back to your calendar. You're not gonna wanna grow spinach in July. It's just not gonna work. Cilantro, I'm sorry, if you love it, you can't grow it when it's hot. It likes to be cool. If you try to grow it, it's gonna get a head come up on it, and it's not gonna taste good. So there's certain things you can only grow in the early spring, or you can pick them up again later in the fall as well. So I hope this gives you guys a really good place to start. If you're feeling overwhelmed right now, pick one thing. What's one thing that you would really like to try to grow? And just start with that one thing. If it's only one tomato in a pot, that's awesome. That's more than you did last year. And you can do it. Most people who give this a try, they're like, and they get through it, and they're like, oh my gosh, I grew it. I didn't think I could do it, and I did it. So yes, everybody can do this. And I think it's a skill that it's been lost over the years. And we really need to make sure we can, if we have to, especially if something happens and we have to, you know you can do it. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I have more questions. If you need to go, that's fine, but I want to stay and answer your questions as well.
How would you recommend growing strawberries?
Strawberries, oh yes. Strawberries are great in raised beds. If you want to grow some in a pot, I wouldn't go any smaller than like a 14 or 16-inch pot. But they send out runners, so you can only get so many plants from one pot unless you want to be cutting them off. And you could grow strawberries in something like this, yeah. The biggest thing with strawberries is because they send out those runners and try to start a new plant. A lot of people see that happening and they're like, oh, another plant, I'm going to get more strawberries. That's not the case. It helps if you take off those new babies and either plant them somewhere else, get rid of them, give them away, and keep to that one big strawberry plant, because the bigger your strawberry plant is, the bigger your fruit you're going to get. If you have a whole bunch of little ones that are just new starts, it's putting energy into growing out those new plants, and you're going to have a whole bunch of little berries that are going to be a pain to pick, and you're just not going to get much from them. So I started some actually. The backside of my pool, we had this little raised bed going around the back, and we had ripped grasses out of them because the grasses in a pool don't mix. If you planted grasses by your pool, I'm sorry, they're a mess. So we ripped all those out, and I was like, what am I going to put there? Because nobody can see it except the kids growing in the yard or playing in the yard. So I was like, I'm going to start some strawberries in here. Why not? It has been amazing. I love it, and because it's just this high, but they've covered that whole thing, and I've been really diligent about every so many weeks, I'll cut off those extra strawberries, and I had the best strawberry crop last year with very little work. I fertilized them in the spring. I check on them every now and then and cut off those runners, but yeah, in June I had strawberries. It was awesome. Make them back every year, so you only have to get them once. Well, okay. Usually you want to start a new crop after 5 or 7 years, just because they can get a virus, but yeah. Yes? Yeah.
And I had read where if you put like foam peanuts in the bottom, you don't have to put as much soil in the top.
If you put what in the bottom?
Like the foam peanuts, shipping peanuts
Oh,
in the bottom.
right.
You don't have to put as much soil in your container then. And I didn't have a very good crop, and I was wondering if that was part of my issue.
So she had read about putting like some packing peanuts in the bottom of a container. If you have something that's really deep and you don't want it to be heavy, or you don't want to invest more money into putting potting soil in there. I mean, that's a trick that we'll do, especially for like tall containers. But if it's not any more than like 1.5 feet deep, I would just have it all potting soil, because it was just really long. Yeah. That could, I mean, it's potential soil that could be holding water for your plant. So maybe it was drying out too fast. I mean, they don't necessarily root all the way to the bottom, but when they have limited space, you'd be surprised how far they would root. So yeah, if it's not any deeper than this, I would just put it all soil in there. Yeah. Oh, good question. Okay, so the vegetable planting guide, it lists your vegetables, and then if you want to grow enough for like 3 to 5 people to be eating continuously and probably have some left over to can or freeze, that's what you should plant. Inside, inside is a reference to starting from seed inside. Open ground is going to be, I see what you're saying. Open ground is going to typically be, it could be seed, it could be plants. That's a really good question. I'll just put it this way. Most of the plants you want to start from seed are going to be like your beans. Just stick them in the ground because they germinate really fast. Corn. Carrots, yes, absolutely. Onions, peppers. Peppers are a harder one to germinate. If you want to start peppers from seed, you want to do it inside and have bottom heat. So that's where you would want to invest in like a little mat that would warm them up. So those would have like an inside start date. If you're doing open ground, like what does they say about peppers here? Oh, I missed that spot. I'm sorry. I'll have to go back and add that. So peppers, open ground, I would say late May as a plant. If you want to start them inside, yeah. Usually about 4 to 6 weeks before you can plant them in the ground. So we're starting our peppers right now for people to be able to buy. So you still have plenty of time. Yeah, usually March into April is start peppers from seed inside the house. Yeah, if you start them in the ground by seed in May, I mean, they're not going to do anything until you put them in May from seed in the ground. It's just, you're just going to be that much farther behind. But there'd still be enough time for them to grow from seed in the ground, but they're not going to do anything until the ground is warmer. So either seed or the plant May in the ground. If you want to get ahead of the game, 4 weeks before that time inside. Okay, follow me? Yeah. Okay, are there vegetables that grow well together in a pot? That's going to depend on how big they get. So again, look for the patio type sized vegetables. I usually like to do a tomato and I'll pair it with some herbs because your herbs don't get very big. Or I might do like something in this side. I might do 2 peppers and a couple herbs. I will, I don't have it today, but I will email all of you guys a list of like vegetables we're planning to offer as plants with the varieties that we'll have, so you can start going through that. And I'll have a guide for ones that are are ideal for growing in a pot or in a raised bed because they're more compact. So look for that to come like next week. Yeah.
I have a question about beets.
Beets?
Beets.
Okay.
On the sheet here, it says 2-3 gallon pot per plant. Does that go for beets? It's on the first sheet.
This one? Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's if you want it, not per plant, no. I mean, if you think about how big that's about how much you're going to space them out. Usually you want to have several beets. So you're going to sow them throughout a bigger pot.
Okay. And then pin them down.
Otherwise, you'd have a whole bunch of little pots like this, and that would be a lot.
And that's direct sow.
Direct sow, yeah. Sometimes we'll have some little beet starts to give people a jump. Like beets are so quick, it would give you maybe a 2-week jump, 2 to 3 week, get ahead of that game. Same with carrots. Sometimes we'll offer those in little starts, but you can still grow them directly from seed and they germinate pretty easy. Yeah, they're an easy one to grow from seed. Yeah. Okay, yeah. We do not have any row covers. No. I know like that's easy one to get online. Ace Hardware is another great place to go if you want really helpful people. That they do a really great job as well. Okay. I'm going to stick around. If you have some more questions that you would like to ask me individually, I'm going to be here. You're welcome to start browsing if you haven't noticed, if you've been here before, we have switched a lot of things around. So our seeds and seed starting in plant care is all on the west side now, as well as our cash registers. Feel free to browse around there. The onions and potatoes have come in. So if you want to go ahead and get those today, go for it. And then hopefully next week it'd be a little drier. If not, you can keep them in a cool place until you're ready to start a couple weeks from now. That's one you can just get it and you're ready to go when the weather's nice.
Do you have large bags of Pro Mix?
The Pro Mix we do have, yes, this is the smallest size we carry. We have up to like a 2 cubic foot bag. So yes, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate you sharing your time with us. So sign up is also up here if you're interested in some great recipes.